Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pal's Go to the Movies. My name is Sal and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hey, everybody.
Today we're going to be reviewing the Happytime murders. There's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. When the puppet cast of an 80s children's TV show begins to get murdered one by one, a disgraced LAPD detective turned private eye puppet takes on the case. This movie to me reminded me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit mixed with Bonkers, a cartoon series. So I'm just going to start off by saying that this was directed by Brian Henson, the son of Jim Henson, and also the company that was involved with it was Henson's Alternative, which is, we all know Sesame Street, we all know the Muppets, we know them as being the friendly version of the puppets that we all know from the 80s. Jim Henson created a company called Henson's Alternative to create puppets where they would be used for adult humor purposes. So with that said, I'm going to throw it to Touly and ask him for his opinion. What you think of the movie? What did you like? What didn't you like?
It was probably, not even probably, like up to this point. So it's August right now. I would say this is the worst movie I've seen this year thus far. And I can pretty much guarantee that it will be the worst movie of the year by the time we reach 2019. Because I can't imagine anything that we can potentially go see in the future that's going to be as bad as this one. The way I will summarize how bad this film is, let's just strip away, let's strip away the humor in this film, the adult comedy or whatever you want to describe it as, and let's just look at it as a film itself, like how we normally do for any movie. How are the characters? Are they likable? How are the pacing? What's the pacing like? Is it too slow, too fast? Is it right? Are the twists? Are they fun? Are they unexpected? All the things that we normally talk about in a movie that, in this case, a crime mystery. You want to find out who's behind all of these things that are happening. And I just didn't really feel like this film did those things that I mentioned, like justice. There wasn't like one thing that I felt that was done like well. Because of that, you add on top of that the adult humor. And that aspect of it was just way too over the top to me. I'm not sure if it's because how the film was already bad in those things that I already mentioned, that it escalated or it made the adult humor even worse. Or maybe the adult humor was just already too over the top for me to begin with. But because of the combination of the two, though, that's just what made the film really, really bad for me. And I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say, there were moments that I chuckled and stuff.
Yes.
Because of how outrageous some of the stuff that were being shown. There's not much positive stuff I could say about this other than, the cameo appearances or whatever of some of the actors in this film. Because I think I saw Jimmy Yang. He's a comedian.
Yes.
He was in this film, and I didn't know that he was in there. Also, I'm not sure if you mentioned, maybe you did, but I forget the name of the actor, the guy from The Office who plays Stanley. Yeah, so he was also in there. So that was seeing him there, made me like, oh, okay, that's nice seeing him there. And of course, also Joe McHale, who I first came across in Community. Yeah, but then, a lot of these roles that they were in, it kind of portrayed who they were in all these other shows too. Like, for example, Melissa McCarthy, she had the same old gag that she had in other films. Again, Joe McHale played that role where he was getting made fun of. He was kind of like a comedy relief, and he was in a serious role. I think he was like an FBI agent or whatever. Yeah. So
let me interrupt you really quick. The only one that kind of made it worth my while, to tell you the truth, was Maya Rudolph. She actually, I guess it's because she's been in Saturday Night Live, so she has the roles that she can reprise from different characters. But that was the only redeeming character that I saw. But it's not even that worth mentioning. To tell you the truth, like the whole movie just brought it down. And even if she tried to save it with her acting and everything, but it just felt too short. Like everything felt like it wasn't in the right structure, if that makes sense. Like the story, then the jokes and everything, they were like either the wrong cue and stuff. So yeah, like you said, I did chuckle at some jokes, but at the same time it was like this awkward chuckle, like, oh my god, I just feel like awkward, like, so it was like a forced laugh. So yeah, just saying, like, Melissa McCarthy, this is basically like her, I want to say this is her worst role that I've seen her in, and this is basically talking about, like, she's been in Tammy, and if anybody remembers that movie, this is the same character that she plays, like, when she gets fired from the burger joint in Tammy. It's the same scene when she gets fired from the police force. She comes out and walks out and starts cursing at people like F you, and you, and I don't know you, but F you too. It's the same gag. It's the same script. I don't know if, like, they were desperate, so they just recycled her old jokes. But yeah, you mentioned Stanley from The Office, Leslie David Baker, Joe McHale, Maya Rudolph. We also had Elizabeth Banks and Melissa McCarthy. But even though you had all those actors, it didn't save the movie.
Yeah, I totally feel the same way you do right there. I guess, yeah, part of me feels that a lot of the people who signed on to be this film, maybe they just wanted to be a part of, like, a Muppet movie, I feel like, because maybe, growing up, these iconic characters were, they made a huge impact on their life and their career. So I feel like they just signed on just to be a part of the movie. That's, I mean, probably it's not true, but just given how bad the movie was to me, that was the only reason that I could come up personally that would make sense as to why these people with, prolific titles, or who are prolific actors and actresses in their own rights, why they would do, be involved in a project like this.
It's hard to wrap your head around it.
Exactly. It is, like, I mean, I know we're talking about Happytime murders here, but I mean, we bring up the whole Mark Hamill thing with, the recent Star Wars movie. It's kind of like, in a sense, like that too, where this guy is iconic to the Star Wars franchise, and then he signed up to be a part of this, and you thought that he was gonna have this really epic role in it, but his role in it actually got toned down, and there's been talks out there on the internet or whatever of him not being happy at certain points and stuff like that. When things like that are said and stuff, it makes you question as to why would somebody want to be involved in this project if it's not something worthwhile. It must have some, like, personal value for these actors who have been involved in this project. That's the only thing I could come up with. And then just to add a little on top of how bad this film is, in general, when I personally start thinking about the outrageous stuff that shouldn't or can't even, like, happen in films, like, I mean, we know that, it's a fictional work. Because of that, you have to be able to let your mind kind of, like, open up and take things for what it is, and don't treat it too seriously. For example, I mean, I'm going to mention Star Wars. It takes place out of space with, space battle, lightsabers, all these different creatures. But if a movie is really good, we tend to ignore that. We accept it, right? But in this film, because the movie was so bad, then I started thinking about some of the stuff, like, when they were at the diner and they were eating, it's like, I was wondering, how do Muppets consume food? Like, why do they need to drink coffee? Yeah. Why is the Muppet smoking?
Yep.
When I start thinking like that, then the movie is really bad, because it shouldn't reach that point. Like, if the movie is doing really, really good at keeping you entertained, your mind shouldn't wander off to, like, things like this. But this movie made me do that, and then so because of that, it's a testament to me, at least, as to how bad this movie was for me.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way, because I remember that, when was it? There was a scene where one of the Muppets, he's in the hot tub and dogs attack him. And right before that, we kind of hear that Melissa McCarthy, she has a puppet liver. When I see the puppet getting torn to shreds, I'm thinking, like, wait, didn't you just say there's puppet organs? I'm like, I just see stuffing. And then that's when I'm thinking, like, okay, if this movie got me to the point to think about what's inside a puppet, guess what? You're not doing a good job. I should be more interested in the story, basically how it's progressing, how the plot is progressing, if there's any twists and turns. This movie kind of had me just sitting there and just watching, my watch and saying, like, is it still going? This brings me to my other point. I feel that this movie would have done better if it was maybe like a short TV series, maybe like a 2-3 episodes, or maybe like a Netflix series, 30-minute long episodes. I mean, I believe those are better length than a whole movie, because throughout the movie there was always these low points where I was like, okay, when are we going to go back on track? Discovering who the killer is, progress the story. No, this movie just seemed like it was really running low on gas all the time. The only thing that I kind of, like, found interesting was there was a scene that played homage to Basic Instinct, where the puppet is crossing her legs. I mean, that's the only thing that I was like, oh, okay, I see what they did there. Other than that, it was just, to me, it was just boring, to tell you the truth. Some chuckles, but not enough to basically keep my attention. And like you said, once your mind is wandering off, then the movie didn't do its job.
Yep. And going back to the character who you just mentioned there, what was her name? I forget. But it's basically the person who came, an investigator, yeah. The name of the character, Phil Phillips. She said that like she had people who were like after her, and she wanted him to kind of look into the case. But it turns out, okay, and spoiler alert, she turns out to be one of the culprits who were behind the murders of the Happytime sitcom cast, because apparently in the past, Phil Phillips, the puppet, he was a cop. He was put in a situation where Melissa McCarthy's character was being held hostage by a gunman. Phil Phillips took a shot, missed the gunman, who was actually a puppet as well, and hit this innocent man. And so the person who got shot was actually had a daughter as well, and the daughter turned out to be the person who hired Phil Phillips to investigate the thing that she brought upon him to do. So she wanted revenge, really. There was no agenda, as the movie suggested, for like one of the cast member to get more money because all these other cast members were dying. So all the money they were going to get from like the rerun of the sitcom was going to come to that one individual instead. So that was like the thing that was kind of like making you suspect that it was probably one of the cast members. And for me, my mind immediately went to the human cast member who was a part of the show, who was played by, was it Elizabeth Banks?
Yeah.
So I was already thinking, okay, it has to be her. They tried to write her off by killing her when she entered her car and the car just blew up. But then that threw me for a loop later when she reappeared, and it turns out that it was her and the daughter who hired Phil Phillips to investigate.
Yeah.
She was still alive. And I was thinking, wait, how did she survive? She got in the car and the car blew up. They didn't give me any indication that she got out of the car.
Yeah.
Of course she's dead. But the fact that she just appeared magically at the end like that was like... So what was the point of me showing me that scene when you didn't like foreshadow her potentially still being alive in any retrospect? And also for the daughter. I don't know about you, but again, going back to her idea of wanting to seek vengeance for Phil Phillips, accidentally killing her father.
Yeah.
She said that she wanted him to suffer. So she went and started killing all these cast members, killed, was it his brother?
Yeah, his brother.
Yeah. So he just wanted him to suffer. And, at the same time, when that scene happened in the office, and you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Between her and Phil Phillips, to me, it's kind of like, yeah, I get the point. You did that because you wanted attention of her being the culprit to, like, no longer be there. Like, she was innocent in all of this. She's no way involved in the crimes that has been happening. So they made that little sequence happen between Phil Phillips and her, to give you that thought. But then, if she's seeking vengeance, though, I mean, you pretty much, how's that seeking vengeance? You allow Phil Phillips to do that to you. Like, to me, that doesn't add up. Like, at least, if you're seeking vengeance, wouldn't you just want Phil Phillips to suffer, but you actually gave him a good time? That's pretty much what I'm going for here. And that to me, that doesn't make sense.
No, I'm totally with you. Like, for her to basically be like, I wanted you to suffer, and you're doing this to give him pleasure, but then in reality, like, with all the killings, he's not really suffering. I didn't see that. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to credit this to like a really crappy script writing. And the only thing that really stood out in this movie was the actual puppets. And I think that's due to the Henson people. So with that, I mean, like, I think it was just like, hey, Jim Henson, son is, going to direct this movie, who's on board? And everybody for nostalgic reasons, like, yeah, I'm on board. And they're like, do we have a script? And we can whip it up in 2 minutes. That's basically the whole movie. I mean, there's no redeeming factor for this. Well, just one more thing I wanted to add was that when Sandra walks into the office seeking help from the private detective, which is Phil, I actually was kind of excited because I'm like, oh, look, they're going to play on this noir detective thing. But then I was like, I wanted to go further, but I was like, okay, it's not happening. We also got to see Maya play Bubbles, the receptionist, or the secretary, and I was like, wow, okay, they're going with the theme, but then later it's like there's no theme here. So yeah, I think this movie was really bad. So I guess with that, we're gonna wrap this up and let's give it our final grade. Touly, what did you give this movie?
2.5, like 2.5 out of 10 if I really wanted to, be critical of it. 3.0 if I want to be a little nice.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I'm going to go with a 3 out of 10. The reason is I'm a fan of the Henson puppets. First of all, like I think you kind of linked or talked about Star Wars. I can link this to Star Wars by saying Jim Henson is responsible for Yoda, who in the trilogy was a puppet. So, and there's other puppets from the Jim Henson Company in the Star Wars trilogy, and it's really kind of this nostalgic thing that I have. So I'm like, that's why I'm really lenient, and I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10 because for me it was like I was just happy to see that the puppets are coming back. Even though the whole story kind of sucked. I mean, it was really bad. A 3, just to let you guys know, it's like, don't even see it. Don't even seek out this movie. Even if it's on Netflix, don't even click on it. Just if it's playing on TV and you want to watch it, just kind of keep an eye on the TV and just don't concentrate on it. Just let it play. So with that said, anything else you want to add?
No. I mean, other than what you said about probably not recommending it, I wouldn't recommend it either.
Okay, so that wraps up this review for the Happytime Murders. Join us next time when we review Peppermint. And remember, social media is in the description, and hit us up if you have any question. And remember, keep watching movies.